What's a job where someone makes way more money than people realize? Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. Story 1. Someone's already said it, but some of the wealthiest people I have ever met worked in sales. They also happen to be some of the dumbest people I've also ever met, LOL. Answer. I once worked with a smart, empathetic, funny salesman. To this day, I remain confused by it. It's been 20 years and I've never met another like him to this day. He did have a little bit of a cutthroat side and loved winning sales, so there's that. But he remains the only fairly well-rounded sales manager I've ever met. Used to be the youngest employee in the entire company. Still works there 20 years later. Story 2. My buddy and I own a line striping company. We paint lines in parking lots, garages, etc. We both drive modest cars and don't necessarily live above our means. Since it's just the two of us, our overhead is basically nothing besides our time. We can make around $2,000 off 100 buckets of traffic paint, and we're constantly slammed. I feel like people just see two 27-year-olds in fluorescence and probably would extremely surprised at what we make. Edit. Didn't expect this many questions, still happy to answer them though. It's cool this many people are interested in striping. Not sure if I'm allowed to do this. I'm in no way affiliated. But there's an older guy out of Ohio by the name of Dan. His company is called American Striping. On his website, you can find an absolutely great book that covers everything from starting up all the way to tips and tricks on the job. I'm not going to link it because I'm not sure that's allowed here, but you can find it on his website. Very useful information. Answer. Striping and general parking lot maintenance is absolutely ridiculous for the people who want to put in the hours. It's not even really hard work, it's just tedious. I have some former coworkers in the industry that branched off to focus on it. They will knock out anywhere from 5 to 20 jobs a week at $2K to $10K a pop. They are backed up for months and can work as much as they want. Once you start getting some big commercial jobs, it becomes insane. Story 3. I know a guy who will pick up your dog, take them to the dog park for a couple hours, then drop them off. $60 a pop. I'd see him at the dog park every morning. With 20 dogs, he bought a Mercedes Sprinter van, and how's doing this? He boards dogs too. Answer. We don't have friends or family to look after our dogs, so we use a dog sitter we found on Rover. Daycare 2 to 3x a week depending on our in-office schedules. 55-day of daycare. We board him probably 30-50 nights a year as well, depending on vacation and work travel. 65 night for boarding, 50 surcharge for holidays. The sitter normally has a few other dogs in his care at the same time. Our dog loves the sitter, and I'm sure the sitter makes quite good money doing this full time. Story 4. Linemen. No, not the football players. The people who fix his electric lines. They make crazy money, especially during overtime to restore power after a storm. Answer. You are correct in saying utility workers earn a generous salary. However, it comes at a cost. In working in this industry requires long hours, often having 16 hours a day, multiple days a week, shift work, weekend holiday staffing, call-outs, being deployed out of territory days or weeks at a time, hazardous work from a physical and mental aspect. Needless to say, these individuals sacrifice a lot of their lives for this line of work. They miss a lot of important events, have troubles maintaining family friendships, hobbies, etc. It's not for the faint-hearted. Money isn't everything. Story 5. This will probably get buried, but anything with legal support. My husband has been a legal videographer for years. He records video of mostly depositions. Someone is always suing someone else. Story 6. Med spas are crazy money. You more or less sell either water or cosmetics locked behind a medical license. Everything is cash only. Everything is temporary at best or fake at worst. People think doctors in general make crazy money. Nope, they make good livings. But doctors who sell out for quack medicine can make crazy money. Answer. I just left our pediatrician's practice for good because she would push us towards her Medi-Spa for treating my 16-year-old daughter after we politely declined multiple times. The reason for this particular appointment was to figure out what is causing hirsutism. The look I gave her when she offered a discount for laser hair removal instead of proceeding through the medical practice didn't even faze her. Everything was fixable at the Medi-Spa. Gross behavior, and our new specialist was also disturbed when I mentioned the offer. My child kept having to refuse. Story 7. Being a seafarer, a master or chief engineer makes anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 per month net after taxes, which they can maximize if they do a full 9-month tour. Though I haven't seen a master do that in a while. Answer. Chief and master unlimited can actually make quite a bit more than that actually. Our third mates and engineers probably make that much take home. I clear just about $30K a month after income tax and work a 60 on 60 off schedule. I don't have to pay Social Security or Medicare taxes as I work overseas on a flagged vessel and live overseas, so no state tax. Story 8. Tugboat driver. My half-brother is one. At 23 EO, he was offered a job offshore for $250K. He didn't take it, opting for other roles that led to a permanent position in the city of his choice. Answer: my father was a tugboat captain until he retired a few years ago. He did everything from long-haul trips to import cruise ship assistance. He retired from it because his knees were so bad, but loved it and made a lot of money over the years. His last company asked him to come back for a 30-day trip at on a day. He turned it down, but wished he could have done it. It's also a career that most don't think about, so when they find good captains, they tend to pay well. Story 9. Professors in professional schools. Making $200–400K is the norm for law, business, and medicine teaching. Story 10. The job I'm already doing. We lost a teammate, and the job posting went up for $40K more per year than what I'm making doing that same job. I approached the boss about it, and he said the market is really tough, and it's not fair, but they have to offer that much to get someone new in. I asked for a raise to match market pay, and he said that comes out of a different budget, and the raises budget is dry. Story 11. I was a flooring installer owner for years before going into the front office side of it for large-scale companies. I consistently made $200–300K after taxes and paying my crews and helpers. Now I just do investments, property development rentals, and when I tell people how I started, they are taken back that I used to grind away doing hard labor with no college degree and now in my 40s living a semi-retired life. You see a beat-up old truck carrying carpet around, he's making six figures easy if he's doing it right. Story 12. Industrial maintenance. I maintain a Walmart distribution center, and I'll make $90K this year in central Indiana. Minimal overtime. I also don't really do that much, to be honest. Replace a few parts a week and clear jams on conveyors. I used to design, build, test, and install the equipment I work on now, and I made less money. Story 13. I work an office services job. I do mail and a little bit of everything, even filling dishwashers and stuff like that. Most assume I'm a 20-hour glorified mailroom guy, but I make more than a good amount of the people I serve here. $75K. Not the best, but def more than people assume. Story 14. Personal trainers. Most are broke because they work in big box gyms that screw you over or just don't take the job seriously. A good self-employed trainer can get $108 an hour easily. I've broken six figures for the last 12 years. Been in business 15. Story 15. Boring business owners. Nothing sexy, just the regular day-to-day stuff. Mine is 9 mo a year and six figures when I was on my own. They are very recession-proof and infinitely scalable. Story 16. Apparently every job. It's funny, I'm sitting there making $25K, reading this article, saying starting wage in my job is $43K. And I'm like, LOL what? Edit. Just to be clear, I'm older than some of you imagine. This was in the 90s, not 2025. LOL. Story 17. English tutors in China. Or better yet, music teachers here. If you can play an instrument, violin, piano, cello, etc., you're golden. I know people who charge around $130 per hour to teach music to kids. Answer: I know quite a few music teachers, and none of them are rolling in bank. While the rates seem high, $130 is also not the standard unless you're teaching something specialized or catering to rich people only. You typically aren't teaching 40 hours a week, and building and maintaining a client base can take a long time and a lot of ongoing work. It can also be a super competitive field. Just playing an instrument does not make you golden. If you don't have a degree in music and/or additional teaching credentials to boast, it can be extremely difficult to market yourself or even get a job in a music school. Story 18. My friend is a professional clown for children and adult parties. Specializes in balloon animals. She charges $200 an hour and gets tips. Story 19. River pilots on the Southern Mississippi River. They board large boats to take responsibility of piloting them up or down a small section of the river, usually only about 20 miles for each captain, because the river is very tricky with sandbars and all. Then the next pilot comes on for his section. Each pilot earn about $650K a year for piloting boats 20 miles. Story 20. I know a therapist, psychologist, who works 28 hours a week and makes very close to $300K, and he only accepts cash. Story 21. Data analyst is something that is often referred to as a low-level job, particularly in films and TV about government work. But in fact, a good data analyst is worth their weight in gold, and they are quite rare and extremely highly paid. Story 22. Executive assistant. Most people think, office manager, probably types and files, making 20, and sure, entry level. But when you get into the higher spheres, then six figures, stock and bonuses are not uncommon at all. A lot of that is executive and company dependent, but you can make a darn fine living basically being the only adult in the room to a bunch of fucking grown manolescents. Story 23. Lice removal specialists, school nurse here. We have had to contract with outside providers a couple times for particularly stubborn cases of lice. One family paid $1,000 to have someone come to their house and check clear everyone, 4 people, 2 adults and 2 kids. Took about 4 hours. Literally $250 an hour. Story 24. Commodities traders. Many unassuming people in casual dress, working for not widely recognized firms making 7 figures per year. Story 25. Court stenographers. They sit silently in the corner, but some of them make 6 figures just from listening and typing fast. Proof that quiet work doesn't mean small value. Answer. I know a few people that do this. They make more money selling the transcripts than a lot of people make with their full-time jobs. That's on top of the 6-figure salary. Pretty darn good return on investment since it's a 2-year program. Though I understand it's not uncommon to have to go 3 or 4 years before reaching the speeds required to pass. The greatest lie being foisted on young people is the idea that they need to go to a 4-year university to be successful. The most well-off people I know either went to trade schools for 2 years or went through lengthy graduate programs to earn $400K annually and are actually able to afford to repay their loans. The unfortunate kids graduating from expensive schools with low-value degrees are in the worst position imaginable as far debt to income goes. Story 26. Freelancing your skills instead of being employed. I make $200 for as much in my industry and work way less hours. Story 27. I'm not sure how relevant this is now, but in the mid-2010s, when I told my friend's mom I was going to be a nurse, she said, "Oh, so? You like that sort of thing? That's dirty." She made a face saying that her son was going to do engineering. I graduated in 2016 and was making $70K, which was a lot at the time. I went on to be a nurse practitioner in 2023. I'm now making $160K. I also made more than the son in both years. I think it's more apparent that nurses make money now, especially after COVID with the rise of travel nursing, somewhat becoming viral, ooh, LOL. But it was very hard back then. I recall my uncle always telling me, "How hard can nursing be? You only clean jerk, right?" I also make more than his son who works in finance, LO. Story 28. Apparently my hairstylist, a basic women's cut went from 65 to 85 to 104 in like 3 years, while retail space rents in that area have dropped even. Wish my pay increased like that. Yes, I understand products cost more these days, but overall that jump is insane. Just another example of extreme price increases while most wages stay stagnant. Story 29. Crane operators. I have heard of a guy who earned $200K per year, but I'm unsure what the wage normally is, but it is certainly higher than I think most would guess. Story 30. I work as a coordinator for a military installation. It's this weird job that has no supervisor and no one knows exactly what I do. I'm guaranteed 24 hours overtime a month, and I make $50 an hour. Per my contract, I work 4 hours a day, but get paid for 8 because I'm on call. And somehow my 2 other coworkers still find reasons to complain. Story 31. My mom was bartending right out of college and making close to 6 figures 30 years ago. Her first real job offer out of college paid under $40K. She said it was a hard decision whether to take it or not. She took it, and in hindsight, was definitely the right move. So bartending if you're at the right place or the right kind of person. Story 32. Owner of a vending machine business. People think it's pocket change, but one dude I know clears over $300K a year just restocking snacks and drinks at schools and offices. Passive income is real if you play it right. Story 33. Gas. People make a ton of money working for the gas companies in major cities, and many of them only have high school degrees. Story 34. I'll say this as a Canadian very specifically, but registered massage therapists do better than you think. I make about $120K per year, $90K after taxes, and it took me 3 years of school, and I work a 30-hour work week. The issue is the burnout rate, so you end up having to work out every day. I always recommend my career to people looking for a change. Story 35. Diesel mechanic. My kid started at $43 an hour with a 2-year degree, $12,000 in initial bonuses, $6,000 annually in retention bonuses, and tool allowances. WTF, did I get a degree in accounting 25 years ago? My 20-year-old son is making nearly what I am after his overtime and bonuses. I absolutely love it. Story 36. Contract climbing arborist. It varies a bit, but most guys I know are charging up to $1,000 for an 8-hour day. Most tree care companies criminally underpay their guys. So the industry, at least in my area, has shifted to companies begging to hire climbers, and all the underpaid climbers opening their own contracting businesses and hiring themselves at 5x the rate to the same company they probably left for only paying them like $28 or an hour. Story 37. OP. What jobs make a lot of money that people don't realize? ITT. List all the jobs people already realize that make lots of money. Story 38. Crappy jobs, depending on area and some factors. Plenty of janitors and garbage men out there making 75, 100K, etc. Seen so many 40, 50K degree job havers suggesting to such people they should move up like them and make more. They literally don't understand it as a 50 pay cut. Story 39. Firefighting in specific cities. A family friend told me I'm going to be middle class for the rest of my life by choosing this. My relative gets a $27,000 tax-free pension. Many people choosing to get out early receiving $11,000 or more a month. That pension is $50.75 of our salary. Many firefighters are making $200,000 year and bosses making anywhere from $275,000, $300,000 US. Wild. Story 40. Dog walkers in high-income areas make some stupid money. I'm friendly with the one in my area. She pretty easily clears 100K and is definitely not working 40 hours. If I am ever long-term laid off, that's the plan. Story 41. Top AI researchers are now making hundreds of millions. I knew it was a lot, but that's more than I thought. Story 42. I overheard the kid making balloon animals at the farmer's market near me said he's making close to 100K a year, and he was working for tips no charge. He was pretty good and had things like dragons and could make a T-Rex. Story 43. I'm a heating engineer in the UK, not especially skilled. I work from 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m., 5 days a week, sometimes later in winter months, and the odd Saturday I earned 84K last year. Story 44. I work for a communications company in Montana. I make over a 100K and have medical, dental, a 401K, have over 500K in it, and RNS retirement, have over $1 million in it. The company spends about 170K, 185K yearly on each individual worker. The thing is that us older workers make quite a bit more than the younger guys, and they won't ever get to the wages we make, plus they don't get medical and dental after they retire. Our whole exchanges are completely done with fiber, so there isn't that much overhead now. I used to have 20, 30 jobs daily and couldn't ever get caught up. Now with fiber, I get a job about once every 2 weeks, and it's usually changing out a battery, which take 2 minutes. My bosses are almost 100 miles away and never check on me. Super easy job now, just waiting to hit retirement now. IMO, the younger guys should be able to get everything we have, especially since every exchange is brand new and our company is going to be taking in the money. There's nothing to upgrade now. Spend that money on the younger guys. Story 45. Pipeliners, at least in Canada. A laborer in their first year can make upwards of 120K can for 8 months of work, 12-hour days, 6 days a week. Story 46. I built gas lines for over a decade. The rig welders out there would clear 6K a week after taxes, claiming single and zero. I knew a few welding foremen that would clear 15K a week. I won't even comment on the superintendents. Story 47. I dated a nail tech in a H-Coal city in the ritzy part of town, and she cleared 250K that year. It was nuts. And no, she wasn't the owner. Story 48. Waiter-waitress at high-end restaurants. My buddy worked at a fancy steakhouse, and he said PPL's bills were usually close to $1,000, so he would get tipped around $200 per guest check. Story 49. I know a railroader that is obsessed with taking overtime and makes north of $250K per year. The average dude makes about $150K. I make about $100K as a contractor, but I only work 4 days a week, so I actually have a life, and I am single, so it's more than enough for just me. Story 50. I started a handyman business while in engineering school during COVID. After a couple years, I realized I was making more money as a handyman than I would be as an engineer. It's stressful owning my own business, and it can be hard on the body sometimes, but it keeps me fit. I do the work I love. I got to make my customers happy, and because I set my own schedule, I've never missed a single one of my son's soccer games, band concerts, or award ceremonies. Story 51. Assistant principals make around $150K on the coastal U.S. states. They still get 2 months off for summer too. More experienced ones make closer to $200K. Answer. I dated an AP for 7 years and it's no cakewalk. Summers off don't actually exist for them, and they pretty much do the principal's shoot work. Weekends were often spent going to school-sponsored events. All PR legal shoot is a big fudge deal, and they need to handle it. Also, teachers and students dislike them because they do hiring, firing, expulsions, etc. Frankly, $150K isn't a lot for the stress and workload. It's comfortable enough to go away on a 1 to 2 week-long international vacation each year, where they're still glued to their phones expecting shoot to go down when they're away. Also, the IRS of their school can also cause stress. Working in a hood school is tough as hell because you need to meet expectations that are unrealistic. Like on 100 graduation, when half of your student body are undocumented migrants working fundy to support their family limo. Rich schools are no cakewalk either because those kids and parents think they can get away with takedown. And frankly, they do because money exempts you from accountability in our society limo. Story 52. Healthy reminder to the rest of the world, most responses here are for U.S. jobs and salaries. That country is expensive F, and they pay everything out of pocket, healthcare, all tax, retirement funds, everything. Story 53. Locker room managers and caddies, masters at country clubs, $100K a season, busy summers, limited time for social life, but winters off play, golf for free, employee meals, 401K, being around interesting PPL. Story 54. The mechanic I use charges $164, not even Euro or specialty cars. Pretty much fixes everything that comes to his shop. Yes, his rate is on par with local shops, but he's always booked and puts in 10 HR days. Story 55. Golf course greenskeepers and general managers. Clubs are paying GMs $400K. The freaking guy who is in charge of mowing the grass makes $250K. These are numbers in the Midwest. I feel like nobody is aware of this. Some scrub who is in charge of the golf course makes that. I've met these GMs of golf clubs. They're dolts. Story 56. Corporate locksmiths, especially ones working for large banks or data centers, can make over $100K. It's not just key cutting, it's complex security systems. One guy I know clears $120K managing vault access points for high security facilities. Story 57. Nanny. I made $2K per week, 4 kids. They bought me a car, paid for gas, insurance, weekly detail, repairs. They let me use their ranch, ski resort house, beach house if they weren't. I got around 13 weeks of paid vacation. I got amazing bonuses, gifts, hand-me-downs, Persian carpets, antique furniture, artwork, etc. The dad was in VC and opened a money market account for me. He gave me stock in companies that he funded. Story 58. Veterinary nurse technician. For some reason, vet med is looked down upon by MDs, human nurses. But we have to treat many different species. Human med just has to know about one species. Story 59. Corporate insurance. People think it's a boring industry, but it's very interesting if you have an inquisitive mind about the way businesses work and the risks they face, and is far more lucrative than most people assume. Story 60. Not sure if this fits here, but accountants. I think most people assume they make fairly decent money, but I think most non-accounting folks would be surprised to learn just how much you can make as you progress. I was told not to major in it by several people who claimed it was too much work for not enough pay, and they've been totally wrong in my experience. I think in terms of a 4-year degree, you really get a good bang for your buck. Story 61. Film set grips. They do a bunch of different things, but the primary function on most sets is to block, diffuse, reflect, jot color, and shape light through the use of various textiles. Essentially professional shadow puppeteers. On non-union commercial productions here in Washington, D.C., an experienced grip can expect to make about $750 for a 10-hour day. As a department head, key grip, it's closer to $800, $5,000 10-hour day for labor. I once day played on one of Mike Rowe's shows as key grip for 2 days and made close to $3K between my labor and the rental of my grip equipment, and literally all I ended up doing was hold a 4x4 piece of white styrofoam a handful of times to bounce some sunlight into his eyes. Story 62. Oil and natural gas plant operators and/or power engineers. We make between $200K to $300K, depending upon overtime. Answer. The trade-off is you work a lot of hours. My buddy is an operator and makes $200K a year in a region where that is considered well off, and I never get to see him anymore. He told me that he usually waits till after 8 a.m. to go to bed just so he can spend a few hours with his son before school. If it's a turnaround, he's working almost nonstop for a couple of months or longer. Have seen one turnaround last 4 to 5 months, and that was brutal. On the bright side, as long as nothing explodes, his job is pretty fudge easy. Mostly consists of getting water samples, checking pipes, or writing work requests. Of course, if something does go wrong, he's expected to run toward it. Story 63. Police officers, but it entirely depends on region. One of the few careers left with a pension. Most offer take-home cars and good medical benefits. Easy to clear 6 figures and even 200s if you work OT. The work-life balance can suck, though. Satisfaction can also be problematic. The best-paying places often have the worst support. Answer: same for firefighters. Start in your early 20s making a respectable salary, especially for a young man with a low SOL. With incredible retirement benefits, and you can retire at or around 50 if you're smart with your money, and you only work 10 days a month. Don't get me wrong, this job comes with a lot of unique challenges and risks, but there's nothing else you'd rather do. And the best part? I know a lot of guys who are able to retire right now, but love their job so much they keep working. Story 64. Back in the 80s, I knew of a guy that used to buy Domino's pizza with half the cheese and half the pepperoni for $3 and sell it for $5. He went all over the place selling them. On Friday night, he would buy a lot and go to the beach. And when he saw a party, he would knock on the door and say he had a bad order and anyone want a pizza for $5, and people lined up. He made $60K a year under the table and drove a brand new Audi. Story 65. Elevator escalator construction and repair, 01 electricians, sheet metal workers, plumbers, all make great money. Everyone just hears construction and automatically assume they don't make much. Story 66. Yacht sales. Depending on the deal, the company that you work for, etc. But if you are well connected or you are a pretty girl who knows a thing or two about boats, you can land a 5-10 commission for a sale of a yacht anywhere between 1 and 600 million. For one sale, then you just need to follow up with the project sometimes. Actually, almost none of them follow up with their clients. Obviously, the more successful brokers either have a popular social media account or they worked as captains or crew members, so they know how to look for the right characteristics when finding the right boat for the right buyer. Story 67. Surveyor. I'm an attorney and do pretty decent. A buddy of mine is a surveyor in a small town with 2 full-time employees. He makes between $750K and a 1M per year, drives an old beater, and tries to look like he doesn't have anything. Story 68. Delivery to the parking lot for plant substance dispensary. Michigan has legal plant substance. Their dispensary parking lots are packed. There's people who package inside and then other people who deliver it to the parking lot. The people receiving the plant substance tip the folks for bringing it to the car. I bet there's delivery people make a lot of money each day in cash tips. Story 69. Literally any mobile business in a large area. I meet them all the time. Power washers, lawn care dudes, mobile mechanics, mobile oil changers. I even met a girl that charges $150 to tell rich people how their dog feels spiritually. They charge less than brick and mortar, have minimal overhead, and I ask if they do well. They all tell me they try to clear about 1,000 a day, and they hit that most days. Story 70. My husband works in solid waste, and people would be floored. Landfills are cash cows. People working in this industry, especially for larger companies like Waste Management, Republic, etc., are very well compensated. Working in solid waste isn't sexy, but there is a lot of money in job security. Story 71. I work in special education. There's no money in that. Was kind of hoping to find some easy things I could do on the side. Definitely not seeing that. Story 72. Restaurant owners. Medium-sized restaurant owners can easily clear 400K net profit for themselves on a 2-3M revenue, which is not that out of reach. Basically, your local Chinese buffet owner makes as much as a doctor, LOL. I have a friend that owns 7 food establishments and clears well over 1 NEM net for himself a year. Leeches. I have a friend who metamorphosed into a leech and now takes home 400K profit. Story 73. Door-to-door sales. Security pest control. The best ones make well into the 6 figures for 3 to 4 months of work. I was average and still supported my family for a year by working 3 months every summer. Story 74. You can make 6 figures shoeing horses. It's hard work and can be dangerous, but you can make good money at it. Story 75. Tree planting if you're good at it. It's piecework, so you get paid by the tree. 3,000 trees a day at 16 cents per tree. You do the math. Story 76. Highway construction. In my area of NY laborers get 71 bar foremen get 92R, and operators get 95R. They bring home 110, 130K in 8 months after tax. Story 77. Picking up dog poop in people's yards. Time it so you go to each client the day before garbage pickup and you don't have to deal with taking it off-site. Story 78. Working for Halliburton or KBR Kellogg, Brown and Root, or what us soldiers called keep Bush rich, as in the president. Basically, it's just basic construction sites and a large janitorial maintenance company for bases in combat zones. Halliburton gets the contracts to rebuild whatever is blown up from a conflict, war, or some kind of serious combat type damage. The contracts are long. I'm talking like 10, 20-year contracts. There's two sides. Either you're working on a construction site that's completely bare, so there are a lot of physical labor jobs, literally carry this over there, type shoot, or you maintain the living quarters and grounds where the workers stay. These work hand in hand with the military. That way KBR can get the contracts to maintain the porta potties and pick up litter type easy maintenance. Here's the kicker. Your life is worth more than the deployed soldiers in the combat zone because we took an oath and this is part of the job, but you as a civilian are putting your life on the line to support the troops as they patrol and guard the work sites you're doing construction on. So you still have to pay taxes. But you're making so much money that you have to get sent on a freedom rest where they send you to Qatar to party like a rock star for a weekend to a week because anything you've earned over 78K starts to get taxed. Everything up to that point is tax-free wage earnings to the cent. So what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to work 3 weeks and then fly back home to the States for a week. So you're still present in your family's lives as opposed to soldiers that are deployed for a whole year. But what happens is that so many young veterans and civilians go to work for KBR, and instead of flying home every 3 weeks, which is about when you're about to hit 78K, so your supervisor says, you need to go on a tax break vacation so we can restart your earnings contract so we don't have to report tax earnings back to the States. My ex-squad leader went to work for KBR as his contract was ending just after his deployment. Instead of going home, he was contracted from the Army to KBR, and his sole job was to walk soldiers from the Armadillo hangar to the staircase of the aircraft for soldiers going on leave during their deployments. I ran into him during my first deployment when I went on leave during Iraq in 2005 with the 101st. Then when I deployed 2 years later from another unit in Germany, I ran into him again doing the same thing as I went on deployment again. He told me how he had been in Iraq ever since I saw him a couple years prior. He said he brought a 6-bedroom house outside Atlanta that he hasn't even set foot in and has already paid off. All of his 4 kids have $200K in their bank accounts for college when they turn 18. He has an Escalade and a Porsche in his 4-car garage, still with the window price stickers on them, and just has his cousin mow his lawn for him while he's been in Iraq. He saved over $2 million in the 4 years he worked there and retired after I had left Iraq with my unit. He said all he did was go to the different MWR tents across all the bases around BIAP and hook up with random government attaches during salsa night, and his wife even had a hall pass till he got back. All those contracts were renewed as the bases were turned over to the Iraqi army that we trained to take our places when we left. Then you have ex-Blackwater, Triple Canopy Bearing Point, and other PMC companies chilling as security for the work sites and employees of KBR and Halliburton. The areas where these guys stay are like a blend of biker festival, concert trailer park, block party type of a feel to them, where it's a place where locals in the area sell their curios, like being at a bazaar without the tent. Constant BBQs, going on heavy drinking while smoking fat bowls of hash out of hookahs, the real way to use a hookah nargila. It's like going out to work at a blue-collar job with an armed security entourage just to do some plumbing or concrete pouring. Then you head back to the compound to party like a redneck established American embassy, doing whatever is legal in their current country of work. A lot in the Middle East. Follow male body part Cheney Trump and the rest on the Dub app so you can buy the same stocks that the White House staff is getting rich off of too. I've made plenty off Pelosi this year. If you want to make 78K every 3 weeks or so, then blow 10K over a weekend in Qatar just to come back to work and make another 78 after 3 more weeks, you can do it as long as you can stand being over there, as opposed to over here. Now with Trump's push to fight anti-Semitism, which Trump and his children are, Trump considers himself a Jacobite, but whatever. His kids are Jewish, so there you go. With the fight to combat anti-Semitism, it creates a reason for American military forces to go to Israel as a peacekeeping mission, which Thurn opens the contracts to Halliburton to rebuild Gaza, which is prime real estate on the coast, which the news want. So if there is a reason to build up a worn-torn area, Trump will pave the way for the contracts which he can get a kickback through shell companies and LLCs. When Trump said, I think they should just bulldoze the whole area and rebuild, he's talking about Halliburton and KBR, which hold the only contracts for American workers over there to actually do the work. This is where the trusted guys in unions, the guys that are at every union meeting, get the supervisor form and contacts and then contact their friends that can pass a background check. When you get a contact for Halliburton Construction or KBR Maintenance, you can then pivot and get an interim secret clearance and then work on secret projects outside and inside the U.S. If you handle living a little rough, like weather and stress of possible treble gang attacks, on the way to work and then come back to the States with a couple million from literal hard labor, or if you're a veteran and have the freedom to be an expat for a year or two, jump on the PMC train. It's literally gate guard duty for a construction site with an assault rifle. Story 79. I always think people that cut grass make bank. And then they upgrade their equipment with stand-up stand behind mowers and can mow a yard in a matter of minutes. Take on a few yards in the same subdivision, and that money starts stacking. If I were a teenager again, I'd mow yards instead of work retail. Story 80. Military. Besides being in the 80th percentile for pay, your pay is extremely stable. Always pay the guys with guns. And a huge chunk of it is tax-free, housing and food allowances. Additionally, not only is medical care free as in beer, you don't have to earn the pay and then pay for medical insurance. You just have medical insurance. Same with the retirement. Because of all of that, the number is worth $15.35 more than what you actually get because it's pre-tax, tax-free. The housing allowance is a massive benefit. I got tax-free pay to cover my mortgage, and then I could write off my mortgage costs and property taxes from my income. And you don't have to pay taxes while people are trying to eliminate you. Yeah. According to, because the pay is so stable, you can take much bigger risks with your investments. I was 90 stocks, 10 bonds. My 401 Kyra investments are enough to fund a normal retirement. I got grad school paid for, free as in beer, and of course I got paid that entire time too. About a $300K benefit. And that's after they pad for my undergrad too. I transferred some of my GI Bill to my kids. GI Bill is worth about $120K and adjusts upward yearly. Defined benefit retirement is amazing and includes medical care. My maximum out-of-pocket for 2 old people is $3K a year. Never come close to hitting it. With my VA disability, my retirement check is 95 of my active duty pay. To match the value of my retirement with a variable annuity, I would need 4.2 minimum. Oh, and my retirement adjusts for inflation. I technically retired at 55 after 36 years in the Army. I choose to go back to work, but I don't need to work. I could have retired at 39 if I had wanted to, but I would have needed to work. Right about 45 was when I passed the need threshold. Not many jobs pay you well enough to retire at 45. Story 81. If done correctly, swimming pool service and repair. I am an owner solo operator of a company. Annual average gross sales are $275K, profit $200K. Story 82. Met some guys that do biohazard cleanups at a training to access my city's railway. Those guys make bank. One was barely out of high school and was probably making more than me as an engineer. Story 83. Working oil rigs are really a lot of trade work. I worked as a general laborer for a few years. I'm a small woman, so I didn't really go very far before moving on entirely and changing my career. I worked with a ship fitter who only worked for 4 months of the year and then went on crazy trips and stuff with that money. I didn't believe him until he showed me 6 years worth of pictures. I wonder how much he actually made. I didn't ask OBV. Story 84. Bellhops and valets at bigger and nicer hotels. Seems like a simple service job with no skills or education necessary. Those guys easily clear 6 figures though. Story 85. Restaurant server in a senior community. I have a relative who quit nursing school because she makes so much money in tips waiting on rich old folks. Story 86. Certified welders, easily 6 figures, and double that if willing to work OT. And of course, everyone knows about underwater welders, make even more. Story 87. Almost everything to do with New Age. Basically sell water, homeopathy, or stones, crystal blah blah, or give people random advice, astrology, clairvoyance, or random medical advice, all kinds of tests that are complete BS like skin electricity resistance, or tons of other things that you would balk at if you knew. There are so many people dumb as a rock that you can sell them anything if you pitch it right with profit margins that are insane. Put some powder in a brown paper bag. Explain it has been harvested by shamans in the Amazon rainforest by full moon and that it keeps you cancer-free because it keeps your astral chakra clean and the rest of your life you're swimming in money. Your product becomes illegal because it turns out to be harmful? Just switch to another product. Nobody ever goes to jail over this. The only things you need is to not have a conscience and to not want a meaningful life. So unfortunately, it is not for me. Story 88. Electricians and plumbers. Most people think it's blue-collar grind work, but some of these guys are clearing 6 figures easy and booking out months in advance. Story 89. Cleanup of tragic end and take down scenes makes huge money. Hardly anyone actively seeks this as a career. Hazmat is often involved, etc. Plus, it is often done via contracts with local governments that aren't asking too closely about whether citizens are getting their money's worth. Anyone with the stomach for the work can make millions. Story 90. Samuum. Concrete, literally anything to do with concrete. Your local concrete guy is very likely making hundreds of thousands to millions in profit per year. I have a client who makes those little garden stacking blocks. He licenses the design from some company in South America, pays them a few cents per block, and he made multiple millions last year. Another makes septic tanks, similar profit. Another pours the bases for stop signs and billboards and all that, 500 cool. It really surprised me, since none of these people even have websites. Story 91. Oil gas industry. Not as lucrative as it once was, but there are some very well-paid jobs out there. Story 92. Politician. You probably will never really see just how much money they'll get from backdoor deals. Story 93. Amasayawas Shinamwem. London tube drivers, sharp end 90K, lower end 63K. Read on the TfL website here. Strike at the drop of hat, different staff on different unions, and I believe you need to be employed with the TfL for a few years in another role before you can apply. Driverless trains should not have started and stopped with the DLR. Story 94. Flight attendant at a mainline. Starting pay isn't good, but 8 years in, and you are making 6 figures easy. Story 95. By trading, a colleague earns $2,400 a day, approximately. It might seem like a lie, but if I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't believe it. Story 96. Government jobs. I'm not a crazy dog person, but there is plenty of waste in government spending. Blindly cutting isn't the best way to reduce waste. Story 97. I know there's a long-standing stigma of graphic designers not making money, plus the trumpeting of AI taking jobs. It's not taking good designers' jobs at all, but there is plenty of money in this path. I know several making in the mid-100s. It's not FU money, but you can do this job and make an actual decent living. Story 98. In my experiences in a big city, mechanics, garbage disposal drivers, hairdressers, skin techs makes big bucks. On the flip side, teachers and nursing care don't make enough. Story 99. Railroad workers in the U.S. can earn $80K to start as train crew. Comes with the caveat that you're on call 247. When they call you go, doesn't matter what time of day or weather. My dad did 20 years on the railroad with Union Pacific, and by the end, I'm guessing he made about $150K annually. Story 100. Software implementation. It sounds tech-savvy and advanced, but it's really not. Transferring from office work, I was surprised how easy it is to learn, and it pays surprisingly well. Story 101. Partner at a large accounting firm, over $1 million a year with a great pension on retirement. Getting there is a grind, though. Story 102. I'm an LPC licensed professional counselor and work for a nonprofit community agency, and reading this thread, I've changed my career goals 32 times. Story 103. Tech jobs. A lot of tech compensation is in stock, which usually leads to massive gains, especially if you join when the stock is in the gutter and it rebounds later. A friend of mine is at Uber, for example, and is at $700K due to stock appreciation. He's just a regular software engineer too, not a manager or anything. Another friend was an early hire at a startup that got quietly acqui-hired last year, and his payout was in the low 7 digits. He's in his 20s and still lives with a roommate and continues to work there. Tech has been the greatest creator of wealth for normal people, hands down. Story 104. Truck driver. I was making $70 an hour. I was not an owner-operator either. 2 weeks of trucking classes to a 6-figure salary. Story 105. Making those emojicons for top-tier companies like Apple. I recall a designer that made well over 200 Kier. Story 106. Court stenographers. They just sit quietly and type, but many of them earn 6 figures, especially in places with a shortage. Plus, there's barely any public attention on them, so people have no idea how much they actually make. Story 107. Teachers. We are not all making under 60K like most people think. Pay depends on state, education level you have, and we also get paid per hour after our regular salary. Any after-school jobs in summer school, we get an additional check for. Story 108. I'm a software dev in Canada, and hearing what people make in the US is absurd to me. Because not only is it way higher than I get paid, it's also in USD, so I can add another 40 onto it. Story 109. Elevator Union, Journeyman, starting pay is 37 to 59 here after 5 years. At Journeyman, your base pay is 74 fish, 40-hour work weeks, including overtime. All OT is X2. Total hourly, including benefits, at Journeyman level is 112 hash. Story 110. Therapists in private practice who hustle have the potential to make way more than the average salary listed if they have a good reputation and keep it cash only. My guy hosts 3-hour group sessions with 8 clients, each paying 180. Do the math. Story 111. Property management and investments. Have a bunch of friends that either took business in uni or college without a clue where it would lead to. They landed jobs with property management and commercial real estate investment firms, and god darn, 5 or 6 people in my circle of friends make $250K a year plus a 20-30 bonus. They work like dogs though, 16, 18, 8 days. So pretty much working 2 $150K a year jobs back to back. Good money, but piss poor work-life balance. Story 112. Certain waitresses make up shootload of money, to be honest. I know I did when I was a waitress when I was younger. Story 113. Walmart store managers, depending on the store, they can make $200K to $350K a year with salary bonuses. Story 114. Decommission technician at a data center. I get to break down and destroy servers, SSDs, hard drives, etc. I work on the cleared side of the house, TS clearance. 43, 16 RHR plus a 25K year clearance bonus paid out quarterly. Am a glorified trash man and e-waste vendor. It's crazy. Story 115. Senior leadership in the Army. I guess most people would bet that generals make high 6 figures, but senior enlisted and junior officers make way over 100K in pay and benefits. Not saying we don't earn it, but I, for one, can't find a job making half what the Army pays. Story 116. Being a master plumber or an electrician, stuff like that. A master at any handiwork could make bank. Story 117. Medical imaging can make 6 figures, but it takes 5 years to get there usually. Sonographers, X-ray, CT, etc. Story 118. My dad is the owner-operator of a small commercial HVAC company, and on a slow year, I guesstimate he makes $500K per year after taxes. It ebbs and flows, but sometimes he clears $100K in a week for large jobs, so it is hard to tell what he makes on an annual basis. Story 119. Grocery store managers. For some reason, people hear grocery store and immediately think bagger. They don't think that the store manager makes $150K. Story 120. Poultry science, no joke. University of Georgia has a whole building for it. Chicken eugenicists make like $400K annually from the start because it's a high demand field, but very few people actually go into it. Story 121. Oddly, some software engineers. For most other forms of engineering, your salary doesn't go up all that much over time. The high end of software engineering salaries is into and beyond pro athlete money. Story 122. Orthodontists make serious money, often $300K, especially if they own their practice. Most people think it's just teeth and braces, but it's a goldmine in private care. TikTok helped the aesthetic demand too. Story 123. Cops. Thanks to strong unions and having the luxury of policing themselves, cops can game the system and get so much OT on top of their base pay, it's insane. Story 124. School social worker in urban inner cities. Starting salary is $88K, and it goes up annually until you cap out at $105K, and that's just when this contract expires. The teachers' union always negotiates a higher salary, so that cap may soon become $165K. An added benefit is you get the entire summer off, 10 weeks, in addition to all federal and state holidays. When you account for the amount of free time, that number actually feels higher. It's a very little known secret. I train and mentor graduate social work interns every year, and they're blown away when I show them the numbers. School social workers make way more money than people realize. Story 125. Mechanic at a dealership. Sorry, a good productive mechanic at a dealership. My wife's dad has a business that deals with the auto repair industry. Some of his friends work at repair shops, so he was shocked when he found out how much money I made. At the time, I was a full bumper-to-bumper platinum techs. That's what my car brand labels, fully factory-trained techs. My specialty was EV, hybrid, electric, and drivability. Once me and my wife got serious and we moved in together and he saw the life upgrades we made, moved to a very nice neighborhood, new car, nice trips, he straight up asked her, how was it possible on her salary and my mechanic's salary? Because none of his friends can live like that. And when she told him, he was shocked and confused. But it's something I've always heard from people around me. Everyone is shocked on how much I made. Now I'm in upper management, and I actually took a deep pay cut. My old manager would always joke around saying he wished he had my paychecks. Once he retired and I took over, I realized he wasn't joking, LOL. But the pay cut is worth it. Story 126. Software engineers, easily 6 figures out of college. Software engineer managers in HQL and big tech can make close to 7 figures even. Story 127. Heavy manufacturing and heavy machinery operators. Manufacturing is usually viewed as dirty poverty work. Steel mills, automotive plants, etc. pay very well with minimal education requirements. It's dirty and often dangerous, but you can earn a very good living. I made more at the steel mill that only required a GED than my sister with a master's degree. Heavy equipment operators also are typically well paid and don't require college. Story 128. Mid-level corporate jobs. You don't even need to manage people to make 6 figures, though it will take a while to get there. Story 129. I would say anyone in the trades. Most look pretty rough around the edges, largely due to the fact they're working with their hands most of the day. But if they own their own business, they are doing quite well. Story 130. Construction takes no formal education and always has a job. Get per diem, so they bank on tax-free income using travel trailers. A bunch will live in one. Story 131. Managers at small-town grain elevators are making healthy 6 figures, and most get bonuses on top of that. Keep in mind the cost of living in those parts is very low as well. Story 132. HR standard employees earn good up to the head of HR that makes as much as a board member, and they mostly gossip all day. Story 133. Garbage guys. Buddy makes $6K a month sitting in an air-conditioned truck driving around emptying bins. Story 134. Software. If you're good, I make way more as a senior staff engineer than the investment bankers I know. Story 134. I was recently hired for $150K a year to help a video game studio produce high-quality cinematics. They're not actually making any right now, though, so I don't really do much all day. I have to imagine it will change at some point, but it's been 4 months. I'm honestly not sure why they hired me. Answer. A video game developing company that hire with a contract without even needing the position? Do you have like 6 billion years experience or something? Man, you really found the nirvana. Been working in video games for 4 years now as a character designer, and I still get paid by the project, which is mostly fine since we usually have 23 small productions a year plus collaborations. Story 135. I work for a university part-time. My job is an e-learning assistant. Basically, if someone is too stupid to start a Zoom meeting, they call me and I tell them how to do it. Haven't had a call in 18 months. Still get paid. Story 136. I don't want to give too many details, but this story is about one of my best friends. He was the art director for a major financial institution. His only job was to ensure branding guidelines were being followed across all the many different groups. They would send him the materials or present to him on a call. He would provide detailed feedback. That's it. He worked 2 hours a day and his base salary was $200K. He did this job for 18 months before quitting because he felt his brain dying from playing video games all day. The man is a legend. Answer. His only job was to ensure branding guidelines were being followed across all the many different groups. They would send him the materials or present to him on a call. He would provide detailed feedback. That's it. This is a role I'm actively trying to break into within my company. My company's brand is worth nearly 3B alone, so it's taken more seriously than your best friend OP. Still evangelizing branding on my end, from a video and photo aspect, and participating in branding projects leads me to think that these folks get paid great money to pretty much say, no, and here's why. Story 137. I remember this kind of conversation came around a year or so ago. One guy said he made good money, like $200K a year, as a customer support guy for an enterprise tech company. Basically, he would field customer service calls from various customer companies. However, his particular client portfolio was one large company with a bunch of pretty tech-savvy people, so he got no calls. The company had paid for the gold standard customer service level, so he was a dedicated employee to that account. He just never got any calls, and when he asked his boss about it, he was told that it's just how the thing is set up. But if he ever did get a call, his job was to respond immediately and provide top-tier service. He said it had been 2 years and got like half a dozen calls in that time. He read books, took classes, worked out, and stuff like that during the day. Story 138. I work for an answering service. I'm one of 2 night guys, and I work from home. Given how slow nights are, I pretty much sit around watching TV, reading books, etc. Story 139. Am an electrician. I get paid $40 for every light switch I install. I install about 20 a day every day. You do the math. Story 140. I'm a pilot for an airline in China. Because of their COVID-0 policy to this day, I haven't flown a plane in over 2 years, yet still making full pay. And when I'm not flying, I'm not working. It's essentially a day off. I know people that's moved out of China, still make their full pilot salary, and started a new full-time gig overseas in a different field. Story 141. UX work on software, apps and websites, no coding. 3 hours a day from home, in my underwear. 6 figures. Story 142. Night shift superintendent for a DoD contractor. Basically, I'm here in case shoot hits the fan, which is about once every few months or so. Other than that, I sit in my office, listen to podcasts, watch YouTube. Job pays $100K, work 4/10s, and no weekends or holidays. Story 143. Growing up, my friend was a bread shelving person. Go to a store, take bread from back, and put it on the shelf. Got to be so easy they grabbed a second route, then a third. Each route was 40 hours, and you were supposed to check the stores 2 times a day. 3 on holidays and storms. They just didn't, and just gave each shift manager a business card to call if it needed stocked early. 120, no OT pay, hours a week pay for probably 18 hours worth of work. Answer. I did this for Frito-Lay for about 6 years while going to college. While it is a pretty easy job skill-wise, it will ruin your life in the way that you will be working for at least noon, 5 days a week, and you will never have a weekend day off. That job was the motivation to finish school. I could feel my unused brain cells dying from lack of mental stimulation. Story 144. I work in a warehouse pulling orders. Our production goal is an average of 25 items per minute. And as long as you're at 90 of this goal, you're good. I'm practically sleepwalking through my shift and reach 120 easy. Story 1845. I had a job maybe 20 years ago that was the easiest job ever. I was paid literally to do nothing at all. Software engineering department I was hired into was to create a new product that would compete with large company. I worked on it for 2 years. Just as the project was ready, large company bought us, and my project became the thing that we absolutely, positively do not talk about ever. Large company was looking to make cuts too, and the head of engineering wanted to keep his department large so he would be relevant and irreplaceable. So he kept me on. He had me bill my hours to other people's projects, and I was given no work to do. I asked around, can I help with this? Can I help with that? Everyone was worried about having some newer guy learn their ropes. That might make them replaceable. No, I don't need any help, thanks. I tried, I really did, but nobody wanted me to do anything, so I sat there and got paid. It got boring. I'd bring hobbies from home and sit in the parking lot and work on them in my van. I'd take ridiculous lunches, disappear to the far side of town to check out this restaurant or that restaurant, or sleep. I had an inflatable mattress in the back of my van. I'd fire up the AC and snooze. Did that for about a year. Story 146. It's not really a lazy job, but it's a fairly easy job. I'm a botanist for a plant nutrient company. Basically, my work proceeds at the speed of plants growing. I make $65K a year as salary. Not a huge sum like those tech jobs that pay like $200K for 10 hours of work, but I basically just chill in a garden all day and look at plants. Story 147. Security for government facilities. I make $55 an hour to sit on my jerk and watch DVDs, assuming the TV and DVD player aren't broken. That's with no college education, and really anyone with any customer service experience can get into security easily. I dislike my job though. No cell phones, no internet access. Dude on day shift broke our TV a while back. We went like 4 months with nothing but staring at the wall to do. You can't get up and walk around. You don't have regular TV channels. There isn't any radios. And as I said, nothing with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth microphones or cameras are allowed in. So you just sat for 12 hours. It sounds nice, but after hour 3, you want to puke. Answer, security for government facilities. I make $55 an hour to sit on my jerk and watch DVDs. I was a little offended reading this as a civil engineer. No cell phones, no internet access. Dude on day shift broke our TV a while back. We went like 4 months with nothing but staring at the wall to do. You could get up and walk around. You don't have regular TV channels. There isn't any radios. And as I said, nothing with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth microphones or cameras are allowed in. So you just sat for 12 hours. Suddenly, that 55-hour wage makes a lot of sense. Fudge that. Story 148. Government, $95 a year. Usually Monday and Tuesday can be hectic, but WID to Friday, usually just sitting at my desk watching the History Channel and surfing Reddit. Fridays, most people aren't here after noon. I've even been told to slow down on my work because what usually takes me a half a day to do takes some of my peers like 3 days. Story 149. Senior data engineer, go to a lot of meetings, look at data models, build and run reports to find inefficiencies, build and run reports to analyze data quality. Think about expansion. Teach younger hackers how to get good. Idawane left 2 days a week. I usually nap an hour or 2 on those days. 118 kier plus bonuses. Tank-based bonus, but it's usually a lot more. The downside is that I have to become passionate about boring shoot, which makes me a boring person. Story 150. While in school, I worked in a gym. Still do, but less, once or sometimes twice a week on the weekends, consists of basically sitting around and doing nothing except help a customer once or twice in my 6-5 shifts and clean up at the end of the day. I earned about 450 Germany monthly and still don't, have to pay for membership, $35 a month. Also lots of cool perks like private changing room, for the coaches a spot to store my own barbell, I'm a power lifter, and free parking anytime in our city center. Have to say I got lucky because most other gyms aren't as chill, but still great if you don't want do much. Answer, I actually thought about this. I go to the gym regularly, and unless it's a kind of crossfire gym where the staff actually needs to train and have a good knowledge, the job seems really chill. You don't get rich, but I am a rather frugal guy, and like you said, it has nice benefits like free membership, free showers, some even sauna, etc. The only thing I couldn't really handle is the pressure to push people into contracts or sell overpriced bullshit, which I hear is common in some big chains. Story 151. I work for a unionized food drink production facility that is largely automated. I babysit systems, do a little hands-on work here and there, and react to alarms going off. Also, I play a lot of Diablo. No degree or special skills required, but I am stuck on midnight shift basically forever. It's a great gig that pays $8,100 a year, and it is so easy, but the low productivity and zero merit-based decisions because of the union still make it frustrating at times. Seniority is king, so there is no incentive to work harder than anyone else. It literally will do nothing for you. Story 152, network engineer. Not sure I'd call it easy, but it's not arduous, and I work from the comfort of my home while sitting down all day. Not sure what you're calling good. It pays $98K, and I live in one of the lowest cost of living cities, $100K pop, in the US. Answer, back-end developer here, 100 tank WFH for 45 days. Pretty chill if you can find yourself a big company, because there everything just takes longer. More bureaucracy, more meetings, more planning, more analyzing. So deadlines are, in my experience, pretty chill. For instance, it's currently $10.45 I'm here, and I've done pretty much all I had set out to do today. I can't